Hey guys, today I wanted to make a video on my entire day trading setup, and I'm going to break it down into 3 steps to simplify it. Before we get into that, I just wanted to apologize. I know it looks like somebody threw up on my chart. Don't worry, I'll explain this going forward, specifically when we get to step 2. But the 3 steps are basically step 1 is how I go about choosing my stocks before the next trading session. Step 2 is my charting that I use and the study indicators for it. And step 3 is how I determine my entries and exits. So without further ado, let's get started with step 1. So how do I choose my stocks? So what I do is before the next trading session occurs, usually the night before or the morning of, I choose about 2 to 3 stocks and put it on my watch list right here. And typically my intuition is pretty good, and the 2 to 3 stocks that I've chosen, at least one of them will make a huge move high for me to make a potential profit. If not, then I also use my momentum scanner right here to see which stocks are gapping up any given second. But I typically like to do my own research, obviously, and decide beforehand which stocks that I think will gap up that day and use the nearest level of support to make my entry. But I'll get into that further. But first, I wanted to talk about the factor I use and to how I choose my stocks for my watch list. The biggest factor is range. And what I mean by range is, so I typically trade penny stocks between like $1 to $15. That's not to say I don't trade large cap stocks. I do, but for this purpose, I'll use a penny stock for an example. And when I say range, if it's a penny stock between $1 to $10, $1 to $15, if it went parabolic that day and it made like anywhere between like a 2 to 8 point move, that's a significant range for that stock. So that tells me that day, where a lot of people made money and you possibly missed out on making money for that stock, that tells me that stock could potentially be up for play again later on down the road, whether it be, the next day or the day after or even a week after. It all really depends on the daily setup for that stock, and I'll get to that more when we get to step 2. But main thing I just wanted to say, the main factor is range. And I know typically when a stock makes its move, you have the assumption that it's done, but that's that can't be further from the truth, because even though the next day that stock might go straight down or straight up, there's going to be opportunities to make profit within that move, because stocks are like waves. There's many support and resistance levels within that trading day that you could use to make your entries and make a quick profit. And so that's basically the gist of it. And again, I've been doing this for about 2 years, so my intuition's pretty good as far as how I know which stocks are going to go up. And again, if I'm wrong, then I have my momentum scanner that I could rely on to see which stocks really are gapping up. But in any case, let's move to step 2. And before we get into any of these charts, I wanted to talk about the daily chart, which obviously goes into how I go about finding my stocks. And let's use IFRX for an example. So on this day, it went from about $4 to a high of $7. Obviously, that also includes pre-market, but that's obviously a significant range for that stock to go from $4 to $7. And so let me zoom in a little bit here. Sorry, just bear with me. So about $4 to $7. If you missed the move from 4 to 7 to make money, that's okay. Just watch the stock, for the next couple of days, and just watch closely the daily setup. And what I like to do on the daily chart is draw support and resistance levels. And the way I determine my support and resistance levels is I try to find at least 3 candlesticks that correlate with one another at that given point in time. So let's use this line for example right here, which is in the 480 area. As you can see, I went all the way back to June of 2019, and this stock had a resistance level around the 480 area. And if you move to the right, you could see it had one right here, here. So this clearly signifies a area of resistance that you could use to manage your stock and your entry. And if you go to the flex grid, that 480 area is validated on the 3-minute chart too. You see how it bounced off this line? Because this was once resistance. When it broke through that resistance became support. So you could have made an entry right here. Another example is, the 420 area right here. And we can go further back and you see this is posing as a level of resistance. Here's another line of, or another candlestick of resistance right here on January of 2020. And then eventually it broke through that, came back down, broke through that, and held up as support again. So you saw the stock went from $3 to $7, and the goal was to obviously look for the next level of support where you could possibly make another entry. And the more support resistance levels you draw that are validated by at least 3 candlesticks verifying that, the better chance you have of bounce for a quick profit. Another thing I like to do is switch this from the daily to the weekly chart for more validation that the support and resistance levels are accurate. So you see how this is now a weekly candlestick. It's bouncing off the support. It does the same thing here to a T. And look how much of a move that it made for this week. So that's basically how the daily setup looks. If we go to the flex grid, the way I have my chart broken down here is I like to use a 3-minute chart and a 1-minute chart for a quicker time frame, but primarily I'm focusing on this 3-minute chart. This has been my savior. This is what I use going forward and what I've used in the past. Most people, these day trading videos that I see, a lot of these breakout traders like to trade at the opening bell. I respect that, but it's just not for me. It's just too volatile, and with ThinkOrSwim, you're not always a guarantee to get a order filled. So I like to look at the broader scape of how a stock is looking for that day, and base my entry and exit based on that. And so as I was talking about earlier, see how on the 3-minute level it bounced off the support level perfectly. If you missed it, that's fine. You could obviously look for the next level of support. You can even draw it out. So let's say here, for example, you see how there's some candlesticks that are bouncing off this 450 area. So you can use that as a good level of support. And clearly it made a move higher. It broke through this resistance. Resistance now becomes support, as it shows right here. And by making your entry, and this brings me to step number 3. By making your entry at the nearest level of support, you're mitigating your risk as much as possible, and you're increasing your potential reward. So if it broke this level of support, if I decided to buy here, I could stop for a quick loss. But if it didn't, and if it held up like it did right here, my potential profit is so much higher. And this is all based on the daily chart. Let me switch back to the daily. Sorry, this is on the weekly right now. Yeah, this is all based on the daily chart, just because of the range that it made on this given day from $4 to $7. Let's go to BLPH. Something very similar. The range it made from $4 to $25. Now this is like basically IFRX times 10. BLPH, you knew in the following days when it made this significant move, it gave you the potential to make a quick profit in the coming days. All you had to do was just draw your resistance and support levels throughout the daily chart for validation, and you can base your entries on the quicker time frames based on the support and resistance levels you do on the daily chart. And then you can obviously, as the day goes on, you can draw these support and resistance levels as well on the 3-minute time frame. And again, as long as you use that rule of having at least 3 candlesticks having that same correlation with one another, then it's a pretty good chance, it's a good level of support, and the stock has a chance to bounce off of that, and you can make a quick profit. So, and I also wanted to talk about these lines right here too. This gold line right here is like a 13 EMA, it's exponential moving average. I also use a VWAP, which is the dotted line right here. Same thing on the 1 minute chart. This green and purple line indicates the 100 and 200 SMA, which is derived from the daily chart. And this blue line is the 20 EMA that I use on the daily chart as well too. So I know it seems like a lot, but it's, once you've do this over and over and you get used to the pattern recognition and terminology, this isn't like calculus. It's really not that complicated because it's a lot to take in right now. It may seem overwhelming, but once you've grasped the concept of support and resistance, once you've grasped the concept of pattern recognition, as far as like, does it look like a bullish setup, does it look like a bearish setup, once you've grasped the concept of volume, how big is the spread on the level 2, all these things obviously take into account where you're going to make your entries and exits and how many shares are you going to buy. And that's why day trading sometimes can be so meticulous that you really have to just learn all of this before you actually get into trading with the real account. But it's not as daunting as most people make it seem out to be. Even though the statistic is only 9% of people succeed in day trading, a lot of that has to do with emotionality. And I think if you just take out the emotionality aspect of it and truly learn the concepts of day trading from a logical perspective, you set yourself up for a very high probability of making money every day, or at least being a consistent trader throughout the year. So that's how I did it. I lost a lot of money in the first couple of months that I day traded. I used the paper trading account a lot to practice my day trades. And then I eventually became profitable. And it's not just with day trading. You can use the same concept with swing trading as well too. If you wanted to buy like some of the other bigger stocks, like we'll use Tesla as an example. Sorry, computer's a little slow, but you could look at the daily setup and just draw certain key support resistance lines to see where you want to make your possible entry. In this given climate, it's a little risky because I haven't seen the market this volatile in a very long time. Obviously very scary times, like when the Dow Jones going up or down 1,000 points is considered a normal day, it's considered scary times. So definitely stay safe out there, guys. Hopefully we can resolve this situation as quickly as possible. So in the meantime, just be sure to keep up with good hygiene, wash your hands, and just all in all, stay safe out there. But I hope I explained that as best as I can as far as how I go about my day trading. I'll make another follow-up video maybe in the future to sort of better explain all of this. But that was just sort of the main gist of it. Step 1 obviously is how I go about choosing my stock. Step 2 is my daily setup as far as charting, drawing out the support resistance lines, and then step 3 is the actual entry that I use based on the support and resistance, and exit once I see like a certain level of resistance approaching. But just remember, I don't sell everything at once. If I buy a certain share at an entry, I'll sell maybe a half or a third. I don't like selling everything at once, even though sometimes I do. You just never know where the top is, so it's just best to take your profit where you can and just let the rest ride out. Don't be greedy either. So yeah. But if you guys enjoyed this video, definitely give me a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, turn on that notification bell. Please share this. I plan on making more videos and keeping up with this channel more often, and I'll definitely be making some live trading videos as well too, some trading recaps, and just teach you guys as much as possible from using my experience. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed this video, and you definitely have a great weekend. Thanks. Bye.